Welcome back to the Whole Nine Yards here. Drew Pien and Brandon Corian on a Wednesday evening. Brandon, how's it going?
Good. Nothing to complain about. How about you?
Pretty good. We've got a NBA thing you want to bring up, but other than that, it's just going to be NFL predictions. I got a hill to climb out of. 2 weeks left. If I had some Brady in my blood, this is where I would go 5-0. You go 1-5. Maybe like a little bit of a tuck rule here and there or something. I don't know how I don't know how you could translate the tuck rule type of rule to our predictions, but if there's a way, then hopefully that happens for me somehow. But anyways, let's get into your NBA Lillard quote you wanted to bring up.
Yeah. So I saw this. I think it was yesterday. It came out. Again, we're recording this on Wednesday, so Tuesday. And some shows talked about it today, like the sports media shows. But I didn't really see. I didn't see anything crazy about it. And I have the quote. I'm not going to say the whole thing, but basically. And I don't know if a reporter asked this or if he just said it. I don't exactly know what it was, but they were talking about how obviously he hasn't won a championship yet. And again, he still has a couple years left. Obviously, he still could, but if he stays in Portland, he probably wouldn't. He'd have to most likely go to another team. But they talked about how he hasn't won one yet, and that in today's NBA, and like you obviously know this, like when you talk about a player who's still playing or retired, you just automatically bring up how many championships he's won. And it seems like the guys like Barkley, Nash, Carl Malone, like those type of guys who haven't won one seem to always be a step down because of that. And his quote, which I'll say this in advance, I don't have a problem with what he said. I actually fully agree with it, but I just have a problem with it seems like just no one's reacting to this in a way that if it was another player who said this who hadn't won a championship, I feel like there'd be way more criticism going their way. And that does seem like the way that happens to Lillard most likely. Like it almost everything he does or says, people tend to not really care about it. But when it's someone else, people care a lot more. But he just talked about how like winning a championship doesn't diminish your career at all, and that it's one of the hardest things. It's the hardest thing to do. So that if you're a great player and you didn't win a championship, your career shouldn't be diminished just because of that, and you should still be viewed as one of the greatest players, even if you didn't win one. And like I said, I agree with that quote fully. And I was like, people in today's world just automatically look at your championships, and that's how they grade you based on other players. But like I said, if this is Westbrook who says this, if this is Harden who says this, if it's Chris Paul who says this, I feel like they get even Chris Paul a little bit, but probably more than Lillard. Like I feel like they get hammered hard on Twitter. All the sports shows are this is like one of their top topics, main topics on every like the next day's shows. I feel like everyone's going after them, saying just like, of course it's about winning a championship. Like that's the whole point of it. Like why should you be saying this? You obviously haven't won one. So again, I didn't see really anything. A couple shows talked about it, but even then it was kind of towards the end of the show, so it wasn't like one of the main topics. You said you hadn't seen the quote. I mean, do you have any thoughts about it? Just like I said, I don't have a problem with the quote. I just have a problem with more so the reaction to the quote.
I mean, I would say it's not something I'd want Lillard to necessarily say, but I would agree with it. I mean, if I'm taking it for what it is, I would agree with it. I don't think not winning a championship diminishes your career. I just think winning a championship elevates your career, which in turn you could also say diminishes the career of all-time greats who don't win a championship, because there are relatively few all-time greats who haven't won a championship. You could
Yeah.
probably count them on two hands: Nash, Barkley, Malone. I mean, Lillard's going to be in that list, Westbrook, and then I don't know. There's probably a couple others other than that, but you could probably count them on two hands how many of the all-time greats that haven't won a championship. So, I mean, yeah, it doesn't diminish Lillard's career, but because 80 to 90% of the all-time greats have won at least one championship, whether it's as the best or second best player on the team, I would say yeah, it diminishes. It diminishes. It does in effect diminish Lillard's career at least a little bit. And the reaction to the quote, I would probably say it has to do with. I mean, it has to do with him just being in Portland and him not being that big of a name outside of like the NBA world. At least when it comes to like Harden's name is way bigger. Westbrook's name is way bigger with the MVP. You know, he's a fashion icon, I guess, if you want to go that far. He's been on multiple teams, been parts of lots of trades. Harden, I just so I would say Lillard's name is not as big, even as compared to Chris Paul. It's not as big because Chris Paul was he was the best point guard in the league for a number of years, and then he's obviously in the finals last year. So, yeah, I would say that probably has to do with a lot of the lack of the reaction. But I think there is also a lot of people that really like Lillard a lot, and because he hasn't moved teams or he's tried to play the loyal card, which I'm not saying is like a bad card to play, but since he's kind of doing that thing, that it's harder to kind of knock on him for not winning a championship because, I mean, even arguably the greatest player of all time, LeBron, he didn't necessarily have to go to Miami to win a championship in his whole career, but to win a championship in the next 2 to 3 years, he definitely had to leave teams. Like, he was not winning a championship on that Cleveland roster for at least another couple of years. So that's kind of, it's just, to me, I find it hard to knock Lillard for not winning a championship, but at the same time, you kind of have to realize, okay, this team's just not putting the necessary tools around me. It's not even about loyalty. It's just about what's best for my career. And, it's just, if I was him, I mean, I would probably at least consider leaving Portland, because bottom line is, and and this is something that it doesn't just apply to basketball, but other things is, if you want people to think of you as an all-time great at something or whatever, or just good at something or whatever it happens to be, you kind of have to follow like what the popular opinion is on a subject. So when it's basketball, it's winning championships. When it's football, it's obviously winning the Super Bowl. But when it's college, it's going to the best named college you could go to. Like, a guy with a 4.0 GPA, 6 perfect SAT score may not want to go to Harvard or whatever, but sometimes you face a lot of pressure, and you may want to go to somewhere else. But if everybody wants you to go to Harvard, and then you wouldn't get the same recognition had you gone to just like the state school rather than Harvard. So it kind of, for me, that's what it kind of reminds me of. And it's Lillard's in a tough spot, but I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, in the past he's talked about like he would want to win a championship in Portland and win a championship somewhere else. And again, like he's most likely going to get traded at the end of the year. Like I just don't see how like they don't go into a rebuild and they don't trade him, in my opinion. But do you think if you were to go to another team, then if you were to go to another team and then say this again, do you think then it would turn on him? Only like you said, like he's playing the loyal card, so people are at least giving him respect for that, which I do respect as well. Even if it's not the smartest decision for a championship, but if let's say he goes to the Sixers or the Mavericks or whatever, and they obviously have a real chance to win a championship, and then he says that, I think that at that point I think the more reactions would start coming out, and then people not turn on him, but you would see it definitely changing from everyone's almost in agreement to at least some people are starting to say some stuff about him. Because like, again, at that point, when you're actually fighting for a real championship and you're saying stuff like that, I think it changes.
Yeah, no, I think it'd be similar to what happened to AD. Let's just say AD doesn't win that championship in 2019. People would be hammering AD, and people still do hammer on AD because they call him soft, they call him this, they call him injury prone, they call him that or whatever. And some of it's true, some of it's not. But the reality is before he kind of held out in New Orleans, yeah, he was facing some criticism here and there, but there were a lot of people that still just were like, yeah, I mean, if I'm starting a franchise, he's probably a top 5 player that I'm starting with my franchise with. And he's, probably going to win at least one MVP in his career. And, so, and once you kind of request a trade and go to another team for the sole purpose of winning another championship, because it's not like Lillard's not moving teams for money like an Evan Fournier would do, or like a role player. You're not moving teams for money. The only reason you would move teams is either for the location, like you want to go back to your hometown, like maybe Kawhi in LA, you could kind of say a little bit, or it's for championships because you're getting the same amount of money pretty much, at least. I guess technically you would get more money had you with the contract if you stay, but I mean that's we're talking the difference of like 300 million and 400 million, which is like, I mean, I think you're fine either way. So.
Yeah. And that's bringing up AD. I mean, we won't talk about it now. We can, if you have anything else to say, we could talk about it or just move to NFL. But I think in the future, we should definitely talk about that only because I saw some reports today, not reports, but I guess some people, I think Colin Cowherd may have said something or someone on one of those FS1 shows was talking about the possibility of trading AD. If you're the Lakers. Now, I mean, would that make the most sense? I guess not. But honestly, He's injury prone. He's 28, 29, but he has the body of like a 34-year-old. He's going to be the future of your team once LeBron retires in the next 2 years. Obviously, Westbrook's not going to be there. So, like, do you really want to build your future around AD when he can barely get through a season? And even when he's there, is he really a top five player, especially on his own, as we saw in New Orleans? So, and again, he's older as well. So I think that's a conversation we could probably have in the future, maybe when the season's over, depending on how it goes for the Lakers. But that's something that I've also thought about before, and I think it's going to be a problem for the Lakers once LeBron retires, unless AD changes, unless he actually turns into that top five player that we think he is. But I don't think he will. I don't think he has the mentality of doing that.
Yeah, I did see something about that. I think I was on a social media or something, and I saw a post of that post saying that some reporter said like he would potentially trade AD for like Tatum and Brown. And if I'm a Celtics fan, I'm not. If I'm Brad Stevens, one, I'm not doing that. Two,
Well, yeah, yeah.
I mean, I don't even know, because when we talk about trading a guy like AD, you have to obviously ask yourself, what teams are trading for him and what are they giving up. It's another situation not similar to Ben Simmons, because Simmons was the whole like choking in the playoffs type of thing and, can't shoot a shot. But it's similar to Ben Simmons in the way that like you're just not, you're going to get a decent amount of picks, just raw picks. You may get some decent amount of like just raw players, but you may get 10 assets, but all those assets are just not good. You're going to get, 50 cents on the dollar for what you would have gotten for AD, a few years ago, which was, Ball, Ingram, Hart, I'm forgetting.
First round pick. Yeah, a couple first round picks. Yeah.
Like, you got a lot of stuff. If you were to trade AD now, like, I don't know. I mean, you're not getting a top 25 player. I just don't think you would. And to make the money work, it's just, you're probably going to have to take a contract you don't really want to take for some okay draft picks, maybe a small potential at a really good draft pick, and then maybe some guy with okay upside. But I think the Lakers are kind of in the position where they have to ride this out. Unless an offer comes out that is actually competitive for what you would have AD's value be worth, then I don't know. To me, I'm not trading AD for like a bag of chips, and I know nobody would. I'm just saying I wouldn't want to trade AD for anything less than like 80 cents on the dollar.
Yeah, and that's probably what they would have to do at this point. Again, even going in the future, I mean, not as this contract doesn't really matter in NBA terms, but yeah, if they were to trade him, you're just never going to get the value back that you could have possibly had if he stays healthy, plays like the player he should be, or obviously if he's just younger because he's going to get older. But again, that's something we could talk about in the future, probably when the season ends. Like I said, it doesn't seem like the Lakers are going to make a championship, so that there's going to be questions there. But we can move to NFL. Do you want to start with predictions, or do you want me to start with predictions?
I can start. I'll start. So right now, you are, I believe, 6 wins ahead of me, or 5.5 wins. So if I were to catch up, aka if you go 3-2 both weeks, there's no way I can catch up. The only way you have to go worse than 3-2 and 2-3. You have to be at best 4-6, I want to say, and I would have to be 10-0.
Yeah, if I were to go 2-3, 2-3, you'd have to go perfect both weeks.
Yeah, so pretty much I really can't afford to lose a game. I maybe can afford to lose one at bet. Like I can't, 3-2 week is pretty much GG for me.
Yeah. Yep.
So this week though, I had to make sure that I didn't really pick the same games as you. It worked out though, because realistically, looking at your sheet of predictions, only one of the games I would have potentially gone with you on.
Which one?
It would have been the Kansas City one. So
okay, yeah.
Brandon is betting on Kansas City. I did not take that game in general. I did not go with the Bengals or anything, but I'll start out first. And I'll start out with the game that... So we picked 2 of the same games, but those 2 games, I picked a different opponent. I'll start out with the first one, which is Raiders at Colts. I'm going to go with Indianapolis win by more than 6.5. Initially, Carson Wentz tested positive for COVID, but because of the new CDC recommendations or guidelines or whatever they're called... he now only has to miss 5 days for a positive test, which means he should play for Sunday. At least that's what I saw last. So if he's playing for Sunday, I don't love Wentz. I've always been a Wentz guy. Until it became obvious that you would take Dak over Wentz, I pretty much rode that bandwagon until it fell apart and crashed, that I would take Wentz over Prescott. Obviously, I know I'm wrong about that, and I would obviously take Prescott right now over Wentz, but earlier in their careers, I was a Wentz over Prescott guy. Anyways, if Wentz can play relatively mistake-free football, if he can play what he was last week, that'd be awesome. Taylor is, a beast. I'm assuming they're going to get Nelson, Leonard, their other guys back. They should have a relatively healthy roster, I believe. I didn't see anything about it not being a relatively healthy roster. So
I didn't see anything either, but I would assume that they play. Yeah.
yeah. So to me, I like the Raiders. Like, they're okay. This is the most resilient Raider group we've seen in the past 3 years. AKA, they're not melting apart to end the year. They're still pulling together some wins, which is cool. But ultimately, I don't think the roster is good enough to compete with Indianapolis. I like them to win by. I think it'll be close. I think Indianapolis wins by 7 points, and I think I get away barely, but that's my prediction. So
Yeah, like Drew said, he's going Colts. I'm going Raiders. Even if Wentz play again, he should play. I guess there was maybe some uncertainty because I guess the 5 days is Sunday, like the fifth day is Sunday. But I think he should play. But even if he is playing, if he's not playing, I was going with the Raiders no matter what. When I saw 6.5, if you look at all the Raiders games, except for the two Chiefs games where they got blown out, if you take those two games away, I think every single game except for like two have been one possession games, and even those other two, I think it was like 10 points. So it's basically a one possession game. So they always play close games, even if they win or lose. It's always a field goal game, a touchdown game, 4 points, whatever it is. So that definitely played into factor. Obviously, again, they not a good game that they played last week against the Broncos, but again, a tough game in Denver is obviously it's tough environment to play in. Needed that game to win to at least have a chance at the playoffs. This would be a huge game. Like I said, I think they just play tough football. Even if it doesn't look impressive, I don't trust Carr, but at least I have faith in him to at least give me a chance to win the game, or at least give me a chance to get it down to 3 points, get it down to one possession game. So I always know that he's going to be in the game at all times. I think he does. I think he's one of the league leaders in game winning drives the last couple of years as well, or since he came into the league. So I always know he's going to give me a chance. And like I said, 6.5 points. Even though the Colts get Nelson back and most of their O-line and Leonard, again, they're most likely going to play. Again, Wentz could play as well. I think the Raiders, I'm not saying they're going to win this game, but I think it's going to be a lot closer. And again, 6.5 points. I mean, you just can't lose by more than a touchdown. I think the Raiders could do that, even on the road. And obviously the Raiders' defense isn't great. Obviously, I'm expecting Taylor to probably have a pretty good game, but I think the Raiders can keep it close.
yeah, I mean, I will say I trust Carr more than I trust Wentz. Carr has the ability to. He definitely, he's not a great quarterback, but he's a quarterback that down 14, I could see Carr pulling you back into a game down 14.
Yeah.
And the Raiders of the last 3 years that typically melt in the latter half of the season, they don't win that game last week. This Raiders team, though, did win that game last week. So I think the resilient group. Carr is a borderline top 12 quarterback who has the potential to play like a top 5 quarterback in any given Sunday, has the ability to bring you down 14 to, win the game potentially. I'm still confident in Indianapolis win by a touchdown, but I will say, it's not like this Raiders team is similar to the Raiders teams of previous years, at least in my opinion.
I should have a quick question. Who do you trust more, Carr or Cousins?
Carr. I trust Carr more.
Carr, yeah, okay, I would agree. I feel like they're very similar quarterbacks. Where one game they could be like the 20th best, and then one game they could be like the 6th best quarterback, and then they're usually in the middle of that most of the times, though.
I would say Cousins on a week-to-week basis has a higher floor, lower ceiling, but that Carr has a lower floor, higher ceiling. I see more. This guy has potential plays in Carr than I do out of Cousins, but I also see more. Okay, this is why the Raiders have tried to move off of Carr for 3 years, and the Vikings have signed Kirk Cousins to, not mega deals, but big deals that are guaranteed a lot of money. So, I mean, I would prefer Carr, but I think when we rank our quarterbacks, they're relatively close to each other. So, the second game though that we both picked is Falcons at Bills. I'm taking Atlanta to cover 14.5. They're 14.5 point underdogs on the road. It's not looking great for me. I'll already say that. I know the Bills just beat the Patriots. They got a lot of momentum. They got embarrassed in that snow and that bad weather game in Buffalo against the Patriots. So the defense is playing with motivation. Josh Allen just played maybe the best game or most important game of his career last week and won that game. Sean McDermott they have a lot of momentum, and as long as they just win the next 2 games, the division is theirs, and they get to play home games pretty much until Kansas City, or at least most likely, I think. But I'm taking Atlanta to cover this. 14.5 is a lot. I still like this Atlanta team. I don't love this Atlanta team, but I think they're better than like a Jaguars. I think they're better than a Lions. I think they're better than a Giants. I think they're better than a Texans. I think they deserve to be in the same conversation as like the Dolphins. I know the Dolphins have a lot of momentum going and all that, and they've played relatively well, but I believe the Falcons are closer to a Dolphins level, which is probably mediocrity, than a Jaguars or Detroit level, which is like bottom 5 team in the league. I think they're probably in that 19-ish range if I were to rank the teams. Maybe that's a little high, but I think I should probably double check to make sure they have everybody playing, but if Cordero's playing, I know Ridley's not playing, but if Cordero's playing, I think this offense is just a different offense than without Cordero, which I've said in the past. I think if Ryan has a decent game, which he has potential to, he's another guy that's a borderline top 12 quarterback. I don't love Arthur Smith, but as long as he can, play a competent game and not just turn the ball over 3 times, then I do have trust that the Falcons can cover 14.5. I'll pick the Bills to win by 10 points, but I'll take the Falcons to cover. And this could also be, something where I'm kind of hoping and just praying that I desperately need to go 5-0, and I desperately need the Falcons to win this game. So it's maybe a little bit of like a 2 birds, 1 stone type of deal with this or whatever. Yeah, 2 birds, 1 stone type of thing.
Yeah.
Falcons cover, maybe they win. I kind of get an edge in the predictions, as well as that brings the division back into play for the Patriots as long as they can beat the Jaguars and Dolphins in Miami, which isn't a guarantee. But yeah, I'll take the Falcons to cover 14.5.
Yeah, I mean, this game, like you said, I'm going with the Bills, but I just I didn't really love another game. And I really think the Bills will cover 14.5. I think they can, but this definitely isn't one of my most confident games, and maybe my least confident game, only because you're not playing a bad team. You're at least playing somewhat of a competent team. Now, again, they can make mistakes. Their defense isn't great. Obviously, they barely beat the Lions at home. But the one thing that does help is that obviously it's in Buffalo. Now, it's not going to be a snowy game. At least I don't think. I think it's just going to be a cold game. It's just the sun will be out, but it's just going to be really cold. But which again, I mean, Matt Ryan, dome quarterback. Obviously, in the NFC South is domes or warm weather stadiums. So and he hasn't played great in the cold. So I think that definitely helps. But 14.5 is definitely a lot of points. So I feel like I'll be lucky with this one. I feel like you probably will get this one. So when I chose it, I thought you were going to go the other way because it seems like it's just a good one to go the other way on because you probably have a better chance at, a team covering 14.5 if you're the underdog, obviously. So, hopefully they cover it, but again, if they don't, I'm okay with accepting this as a loss. But again, I mean, hopefully they just cover it, and then obviously it's a win-win for me. But yeah, definitely not my most confident game. But yeah, I'm taking Bills minus 14.5.
Yeah, I will say the games that I picked the opposite on you on are maybe arguably my 2 most confident games. I'll get into the one that would be in contention. This is arguably also my most confident game, if not, it's between my first and third. The first 2 I said are my first and second, or second and third, or first and third, or whatever. This one is the third one. Dolphins at Titans. Titans are 3.5 point favorites. I'm going with Tennessee. Dolphins, a lot of momentum. Tua has looked decent enough, but I think their road comes to an end today, or not today, but Sunday or whatever. The offense just isn't there. They had to pull out some tricks to really. I know they beat the Saints like 20-3, but they had to pull out some trick plays, some trickery there to really build a lead on the Saints. And that Saints team was a team that was playing with a bunch of injuries and with Ian Book, who was like, it was just the most dysfunctional offense I've seen in a long time.
Yeah.
It wasn't quite like Nathan Peterman level of dysfunction, but it was, you could clearly tell Sean Payton was just not having a fun day with Ian Book as the quarterback. I think Drew Brees would have been better, even at age like 40, whatever he is. So, and I think that says kind of a lot because he probably hasn't been hitting the gym at all or, anything like that. But anyways, it's not really about the Titans to me. It's just that this is kind of a small number, 3.5. And the Titans, while they're not the best team in the conference, they're still arguably fighting for a 1 seed. If the Bengals beat the Chiefs and the Titans win out, the Titans should be the 1 seed. So yep. I think they're playing for a lot. The Dolphins, yeah, I mean, they're playing for their lives here, right? They have to pretty much win out to make the playoffs. or they have to at least upset the Titans or the Patriots probably. So, but I think the Dolphins' run has come to an end. I think the hole they dug early in the season was just a little bit too big of a hole. So yeah, I'll take the Titans to win by a touchdown.
Yeah, that was a game I definitely looked at, and I was tempted to go Tennessee. If I were to choose that, I would have won Tennessee. And just quickly on the Dolphins, again, they've won 7 straight. Obviously, that's very impressive, and it's very hard to do. Obviously, especially for a team that's talented, but not like one of the top teams, anyways. If they weren't 1-7 to start, but again, if you look at some of those wins, they beat the Texans. The Ravens win was a good win. At the time, they were still the Ravens. But other than that, it was Texans, Jets, Panthers, Giants, Jets, and then Saints, obviously, like you said, with Ian Book, COVID, injuries, I mean, everything. So I don't want to diminish the 7-game winning streak, but I mean, you have to look at the teams that you play, and those teams are just none of those teams are good except for the Ravens. And then at the time they were good, but again, none of those teams were good. So that was just quickly on the Dolphins. But my game is Chiefs Bengals. I have the Chiefs -5. I won with the Chiefs last week. That was a huge success. I wasn't expecting the way that they played, especially without Kelsey. Again, at the time I picked them, it wasn't even confirmed that Hill or Kelsey was going to play. Hill did play, Kelsey didn't. This game, obviously, Kelsey
they didn't even need Hill. Hill had like 2 catches for 20 yards. I mean, he probably
yeah.
just wasn't even in the game plan to play. So.
Yeah, he did nothing in that game, and obviously they destroyed them. Now, the one thing, again, Kelsey's going to come back to all full strength, but Clyde Edwards-Helaire isn't going to play in this game. So they've been worse when he's not playing, but it shouldn't matter too much. I mean, they're still dynamic offensively anyways. And one thing for Mahomes, in his last 7 games, which obviously they've won all 7 games, he's only thrown 3 picks. So after beginning the season with like 10 picks or whatever, he's cut down on his turnovers. All the other stats have gone up. The offensive, rating or whatever, if they even track that in the NFL, I assume they do. It's been one of the top of the leagues the last 7 weeks. Then on the Bengals side, they come back from such an amazing performance against the Ravens. You're going against a better defense in the Chiefs. Is Burrow going to go for 500 yards, 4 touchdowns again? No, I would assume that he probably has not a slump game, but definitely just a way back down to earth game, maybe a turnover or 2. He's had turnover problems as well. So I expect him to have a much lesser game. And we'll see how this Bengals defense goes against the Chiefs offense. I think that's going to be an issue for them. I'm excited to see how the Chiefs are going to attack the Bengals defense. And anyways, it's only 5 points. So as long as you win by a touchdown, it covers. So I'm definitely confident in this game. And again, the Chiefs, this could be bad or good. But in Mahomes' career, they've never lost in this. I think they've never lost in November and December, but I know for sure December that they've never lost in Mahomes' career. So that could be a positive or a negative, because it could end or it could extend. But I guess we'll see.
This is the game I'm scared of, right? Because we talked about it. If you just win one game, it's pretty much over for me.
Yeah.
So. And this probably is a game I would have picked. I would have picked this instead of the game I'll get to last. But my 4th game, and this is a game I'm pretty confident in too, actually, is Rams at Ravens. Rams are 3.5-point favorites on the road. It's a relatively big spread for being an away team at a team like the Ravens, which is an above 500 team, a team that should theoretically make the playoffs. But we've seen it the past few weeks. This Ravens team is they're beat up. And there's just no, there's no ways around it. They're a beat up team. They get Lamar back most likely, but in practice today, Lamar returned and had a very noticeable limp. And we both know, and I think everybody should know. And if you don't know, then I'm telling you right now, a non-mobile Lamar is at best 16th best quarterback in the league, at best, in my opinion. And that gets slightly higher if you start giving him like a percentage of his mobility. But if we're just taking all the mobility out of it, he's a bottom 10 quarterback to me. Now, I would probably say he probably is 60% mobile, if that. We'll see. Hopefully it gets better for Sunday. But to me, the way I take it was he wasn't ready to go Sunday after we kind of thought he may have been ready to go, or there was at least a shot. This might have been an injury where it seems like it was making progress. And if they kept on that track, he would have been good to go for last week. But the injury recovery just kind of plateaued, and he still has a little bit of that limp or whatever pain is causing him to limp. He still has a little bit of that left, and it might take a while for that to leave. So a non-mobile Lamar, or at least not like what he is, which is just the most mobile quarterback other than maybe Mike Vick in the history of the NFL. If he's not that, then to me he's not really a good quarterback. And with the injuries that this team already has, there's no way I can justify picking them to cover this. I take the Rams to win by 10 points on the road.
Yeah, again, another game I looked at, and like you said, if Lamar, like I feel like the reason he couldn't play last week, again, it could have been the injury or whatever, but if he's not fully healthy, if he's not at least 90% healthy, then your game plan kind of goes to waste because again, it's the game plan is him running the ball. So if he can't really move as well as he does normally, then you can't trust him to throw the ball, like you said. So I do like that pick a lot. I probably should have picked that game, but I guess we'll see what happens. But my fourth game is Lions at Seahawks. I have Seahawks -7. I've been saying this last couple of weeks. I think Wilson's done in Seattle, so this would be their last home game of the season. They go to Arizona next week, so I think after last week's terrible game against the Bears, where you were home but it was snowing, the weird factors, he looked okay at the beginning and then just stopped completely after that touchdown to Metcalf. You lose that game to the Bears with Nick Foles at quarterback. It's a really bad loss, to be honest. But I think he has a vintage performance here. I think he looks like Wilson again. Again, this is a game that you could obviously win. It would be a good game to go off on if you're going to leave Seattle, which again, like I said, I think he is. For the home fans, obviously, he probably still loves them. I think it's just the organization that he's probably has problems with. But I think he has a good performance in this one. I think they maybe not destroy the Lions, but I think they, definitely have a good performance and they are able to kind of, at least put this game away pretty early. Now, Goff should be back, but I mean, I don't think that matters. I don't think there's really a difference between Goff and whoever their, David, what was it, Blow or whatever his name was last week. So. Like I said, I think Wilson puts on a vintage performance that he's had the last couple of years, and just gets a good win for the home crowd, and is what I think is going to be his last home start there.
Tim Boyle, by the way, was the guy.
Okay, Tim Boyle. I think I was thinking of the guy who started Thanksgiving. That's what I was thinking of.
Yeah. So I hope you're right because I'm either starting Russell Wilson in fantasy or Trey Lance. Would you start Wilson over Lance this week?
I mean, the Texans do have one of the worst run defenses. I would assume Lance is going to run the ball more than he throws it, to be honest.
I would agree. I think I think Lance has a lower ceiling because, realistically, you're not just going to break out like a 90-yard touchdown rush. But if he runs the ball 10 times for an average of 5, that's already, that's 50 yards. That's a good
Get like 175 yards and a touchdown, and then that's like 15 points or 17 points.
I feel like he has a pretty high floor, whereas I've started Wilson the whole year. He definitely does not have a high floor. He's not running the ball as much as maybe you would think a quarterback runs the ball, I guess, but he's getting up there in age and stuff. So, anyways, I hope you're right. I hope Wilson has a monster day. I also hope the Lions cover, so I'm hoping Goff has a monster day. I'm hoping Amon St. Brown has like 3 touchdown receptions or something like that. But the Seahawks, anyways, so I hope the Lions cover that. But this is my last game, Cardinals at Cowboys. This is the game I'm least confident in, but knowing myself, knowing what we've seen from these predictions, this is the one that's going to hit. I'm going to go 1-4, and this is the one that's going to hit. So I got the Cowboys as 4.5-point favorites at home against the Cardinals, and I'm going to have them cover that. The bottom line is I didn't love any of the other games this week. There was a lot of big spreads, and I don't really love touching big spread games for the most part. There are some that I do, but I didn't want to touch the Patriots as 15.5 point. And obviously, the Patriots are going to win that game. I'm pretty sure, but 15.5 points is just a lot.
Yeah.
The Cowboys are, to me, the better team right now. They're the more healthy team. They're the better offense. And I think the biggest strength the Cardinals arguably have over the Cowboys would probably be quarterback. But even then, it's not really that big of a gap. You could argue that, it would not surprise me if Dak would have a better day than Murray on Sunday. So I'm going to take the Cowboys to cover the 4.5. I'm going to take Dak to have a pretty solid day. I'm going to take Zeke to not have a bunch of touches, but hopefully get in the end zone a couple times. Pollard probably, splits the carries or whatever. I like the Cowboys as the better team. The Cardinals, to me, we talked about it the past couple weeks. They're just starting to die out here. So I like the Cowboys to win by 10 points.
Yeah. Hopefully that covers. Or, hopefully, I'd rather them just cover so it's a comfortable win and not stressing out the game. But, of course I want the Cowboys to win that game. I think it'll be a tough game. We'll see how Kyler looks. He just hasn't looked the same. So we'll see how that changes. And I wonder how they use Parsons. I haven't heard anything yet, but I would be I'd be pretty inclined to say that he's probably going to act as a spy. Not all the game or most of it, but probably a good amount of time he's going to act as a spy. Kyler hasn't been running as much, so maybe that changes that, but I guess we'll see. But I do expect him to have a pretty good day. But for my last game, I'm going Browns at Steelers. I'm going Steelers +3. Now, again, this isn't a game I'm super confident in, but this feels like a game the Steelers are going to win. Like, it's just like, again, they had a terrible loss last week. Like, they're obviously done. They're obviously just not a playoff team, no matter what. But this just feels like a game they're going to win. So everyone gets hope that, if they win their next one, they can make the playoffs, just stuff like that. But honestly, I think their defense just dominates. I think Baker, whether he comes back next year or not, I think his time is just done in Cleveland. Like, I think this could be maybe like a game. This game could just be, again, like a nail in the coffin, where he has another bad game. Interceptions, sacks, fumbles. TJ Watt's obviously playing, so he's probably gonna have a big day. So I think the defense dominates in this one. I think it's just gonna be mistake football on both sides. Honestly, I don't. The Steelers aren't that good of a team, even though they have weapons in Harris and Deontay Johnson, who's honestly been really good this year. I think he has 1,100 yards, 7 touchdowns. It's actually a pretty good year from him. So, but I feel like this is a game the Steelers just win. It just feels like one of those type of games. They almost always dominate the Browns, anyways. Maybe this year, last year, maybe not so much. But again, over those last 15 years or whatever, they've dominated them. So I feel like the Steelers win this game. Tomlin, again, just they bring the hope back to Steelers fans. But again, that's not real hope; it's fake. But like I said, +3, and again, I could have the chance of them even losing and covering anyways. But yeah, Steelers +3.
Yeah, this is a game. I mean, I don't know. I honestly have no idea who's going to win this game. It should be Big Ben's final home game. So I mean, that would give you motivation to pick the Steelers in this, right? But I don't know. Both of these teams are very inconsistent to me. I have no idea. Is Mayfield going to have a good day or a bad day? I don't know. Is Roethlisberger going to look like a mediocre quarterback? Is he going to look like awful? I don't know. The most surprising thing, and the Deontay Johnson thing you kind of brought up, is what making me remind me of this. But first off, yeah, Deontay Johnson was a guy that at least some people I saw wanted him to be a Pro Bowler this year. I don't know. I'd have to think about it. But the craziest thing about the Steelers organization, other than the fact that they've been probably the most consistent organization of all time in the NFL, they typically are always doing pretty well, is just the recent ability to just draft wide receivers. Like, name the last time the Steelers had a bad wide receiving core. Like, I know I know Juju is injured and stuff, and Claypool is kind of a clown, and now he's like a meme now. Pulling a Claypool is kind of a thing now. So, but I mean, to draft all these guys, to draft Deontay Johnson, Juju, Antonio Brown, Claypool,
Mike Wallace, Emmanuel Sanders,
like, that's it. I legitimately, like, every 4th round receiver the Steelers take, I'm like, okay, well, they just got like a guy who's probably going to have a very solid 3 years and probably go on to sign a pretty big contract with either the Steelers or another team. It's crazy.
Even Martavis Bryant, I don't know if you remember him, but
yeah. I mean,
he had his rookie year, he had like 12 touchdowns.
If it wasn't if he had a better off-field situation, then he's a guy that's still in the league, So
yeah.
But yeah, it's actually crazy to me, because that's the one thing I'm like envious of the Steelers, is because the Patriots cannot draft a wide receiver to like save their lives.
Even running backs as well. I mean, Najee, James, whatever you think of James Conner, I mean, at least he was solid. Le'Veon, Rashard Mendenhall, I think he was drafted by the Steelers. Obviously, like Jerome Bettis, I think Jerome Bettis was drafted by the Steelers, but like they've always had running backs in their history. So yeah.
Yeah, but I think that's it, right? You did your last game, or did you not?
Yeah, that was my last game.
Okay.
I didn't skip one. Yeah.
So that's all of our 5 games for this week. If you go 4-1 and I lose a game, it's over. That's what clinches it. Or if you go perfect, it's over.
Yeah.
If you go perfect, it is clinched 100% over.
Yeah.
If you go 4-1 and I don't go perfect, then it is for sure clinched over. But there's at least a small chance that I can live to see next week. It's not that likely, but there's at least a chance. So
yeah,
it really relies on me going perfect. I actually recapping and talking about these predictions. I actually like these predictions. relatively small spreads other than the Falcons-Bills game, 3.5, 3.5, 6.5, 4.5. So I like to see that personally. I prefer to take the smaller games because I can kind of just think about it as like, I like the Titans to win this game over the Dolphins. And the 3.5 points,
Yeah.
odds are they're going to cover it. So that's kind of my hope. So at least I'm not super not confident in these games. So that's nice. But anyways, I appreciate everybody stay to the end of the podcast. You know the drill. Social media is all that in the description.
Actually, only because I don't think we're gonna record until this game's over or until the games are over. But you want to make a quick prediction on semifinal college football games, where it's Alabama, Cincinnati, and then Georgia, Michigan.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. Okay. What are
If it happens,
spreads?
I have it right here. It is so Alabama, Cincinnati, Alabama minus 13.5, Georgia, Michigan, Georgia minus 7.5. That's obviously New Year's Eve, so that's Friday. So
Okay.
next time we record, the games will be over. So,
like we said before, both of us are not college football experts. I mean, we're not even. I don't even know if you'd qualify as NFL experts necessarily, but anyways, we're definitely not college football guys.
yeah.
But I'm gonna take Michigan to cover 7.5, and I'm gonna take Alabama to cover the 13.5.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with Alabama for sure.
13.5. That's not a lot, really. That's surprising.
It's not, but like I couldn't really see that being like 17 or like 18. Like I feel like if you have some respect, I mean, yeah, is Alabama gonna win? Like unless something crazy happens or they just play their worst game ever. I mean, they should win. Like Cincinnati, again, when you're Cincinnati, you're not playing in a Group 5 conference. Like you just don't face the players that you face in Alabama. It's basically playing an NFL team for Cincinnati. Like that's how you almost have to look at it. And Georgia, Michigan, I think Georgia will win, but I think it's gonna be a close game. The only thing that hurts is that Michigan, they're like one of the best rushing teams in the nation, and Georgia has the best rush defense. Not only just the best defense in general, but for sure the best run defense. So unless they get something going on the ground, I could see Georgia covering that. But if they get the ground game going, I think that game could be close.
Yeah,
because Georgia's quarterback, I don't think is playing in this game, so that could also play a factor.
Yeah, we'll have to see. It's hypocritical of me to call 13.5 not a lot when I called 14.5, a lot.
Yeah, but it's NFL college, so
it is kind of crazy when you think about it, though, that like, the first best team versus the fourth best team in college football. I'm not Cincinnati probably isn't the fourth best team, but in this case, they're ranked as the fourth. It's a 13.5 spread, where the only points where you can really get that type of spread in the NFL is literally like a top 5 team versus a bottom 5 team, pretty much.
Yeah.
So that just goes to show that the talent discrepancy in college football is just so much greater than like, the NFL, that it's like, I mean, that doesn't it doesn't mean college football is worse or better, but that's just weird when you think about it.
To me, I think it does. Like that's why I can't really get into college football, because it's just like it's the top teams are so much better than the other teams. While in the NFL, like of course you have the top teams like every single year, but like they can lose to any team. It's like they're not going to go. There's a reason why there's only been like the Dolphins went undefeated that one year, and the Patriots almost did. But like there's a reason it doesn't happen. Is because it's impossible to go undefeated. It's just in college football you can go undefeated just about every single year. So that's kind of why I don't. So I'm not really into college football as much as the NFL.
Yeah, I kind of look at it the same way. What's kind of weird to me is like an Alabama fan will just be so diehard Alabama, and it's like I don't know. It just feels so weird to me. Like. I don't know. You beat every team by like 30 every week, but it's not like you're not legitimately even earning those wins. I mean, you earn the ones that come late in the season, like you earn the SEC championship. I would even give you this win if you beat Cincinnati. Like you can celebrate that, but you cannot celebrate beating like I'm trying to think like I don't know before Arkansas was good this year, like beating an Arkansas team that like was clearly does not even deserve to be on the same field as Alabama. You cannot celebrate that. So. Yeah, that's what I would say. But
yeah,
I think college football is still fun to watch. I don't really get into I'm definitely not one that watches like unranked matches, like unranked teams play on Saturday just like to watch it. But
yeah,
I'll watch like I'll watch the big games for sure. So, anyways, though, I get anything else or no?
No, that was I think that's like the only thing other than NFL that's kind of going on. So.
I gave the spiel. We'll be back probably Sunday night or Monday. Goodbye.